Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to one and all who has joined this Gyan Pravah, which means flow of knowledge podcast series. Which today is the episode 44. So we have really come a long way. And today, I, Dr. Manoj Chilani, Chairperson Medical Disorders in Pregnancy Committee Fogsi, and host of today's podcast, welcome our guest speaker, none other than Mr. Rajesh Gangwani, an executive and leadership communication coach. Before I give details introduction of my guest, let me welcome and introduce Dr. Sunita Tandulwadkar, Madam, who is the dynamic president of Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecological Society of India, known as Fogsi, a professional body of 46,000 gynecologists. And you can say she is Prime Minister of Fogsi for year 2025, and we are 30 cabinet ministers. She was president of Endoscopic Society called IAG, and she is president-elect of Infertility Society of ISAR. She is also the founder and director of Solo Clinic, which is Center for Excellence in Infertility. She is also the co-founder and medical director of Stem Cell Research and Application Center. She has the extraordinary achievement of delivering India's first stem cell baby at the age of 45, which has earned her place in medical history. Hearty congratulations, madam. It's really a proud moment for India.
Thank you, Manoj. And we can end my introduction now.
Yeah, ma'am. She is also founder president of Ovarian Rejuvenation. And madam has received Bharat Gaurav Puraskar, Glory of India Award, and also received letter of appreciation from President of India. Wow. She has authored 18 books and 85 publications, and she has attended 400 national and international conferences as faculty. Madam, I invite you to deliver welcome address.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you for your generous words. And congratulate you for thinking of out of the box idea and having Rajesh Gangwani here, which is a need for today. Every organization, may it be medical, it may be a corporate, every organization need such coach. Leadership coach is so important. And today we got in 45 minutes without paying anything to the coach. A great, brilliant discussions will be able to hear. And I know many more minds will be changed. Rajesh ji, our podcast goes on all social media. May it be YouTube, Instagram, it goes on a Facebook, and it gets relayed everywhere, Spotify and all. I'm not so much of a social media person, but our team works hard. So the viewers may not be just the gynecologist, but they may be anyone who are following our pages. And it will be such a great help. This is the beauty of this Gyan Pravah. My 30 committee chairpersons are working on 30 days. And they get the great personalities from various fields. And they take out in 45 minutes brilliant discussions with them, which is benefited to everyone. And I feel fortunate that at the end of a 1 year, I will be meeting 365 fantastic faculty, the leaders or the achievers, I can say, of the country or the globe. Amazing. So this Gyan Pravah is one of the brilliant idea. I don't know how it came. When me, Dr. Ashwini Kale, my joint secretary, and Dr. Pooja Loda, my joint secretary, we used to sit every Thursday evening from 8:30 onwards till we are exhausted for discussion on various topics, what we should do for the gynecologist, for the Fogsians, for the protection against the violence, for giving them academic structure, apart from just thinking on woman health, maternal health, adolescent age. So many work we do, and I'm so glad that in just 2 months, we have done many more. We have done 4 major conferences. We have done several physical CMEs of Sampurna. We have launched the program called Spirituality in Medicine, Arogya Yog Yatra. And the third Arogya Yog Yatra is in Puri. Last month, we were in Rishikesh. In January, we launched at Tirupati. So 13 spiritual places, we are going and talking about bringing the spirituality in medicine. So there are so many aspects we are doing, physical CME, and my all committee chairpersons, my vice president, my office admin, everyone is working. We are doing several publication and projects with government and non-government NGOs, other organization, and Fogsi is never ending. So I'm glad that today, Manoj, we have Mr. Rajesh Gandhi. The Fogsi organizations now near 2 months over, and we are doing so many projects. Apart from conferences, we have the projects in which we are going and doing the CMEs on our Sampurna, the Swastha Janma Abhiyan. We have spirituality into medicine, our Arogya Yoga Yatra, where 13 spiritual places we are going and convincing the public as well as the gynecologist of bringing the universal power to your practice, bringing the spirituality into practice. And above all, I think in small nursing home or big nursing home, important is to have a leadership quality into each and every individual of the team. And today, when Rajesh ji is going to give these tips, I think it will be beneficial not only to the Fogsian, but Manoj, please circulate so that every hospital staff logs in and they get benefited to make their organization, their own nursing home stronger and better. So thank you, Rajesh ji, for coming on a Fogsi platform to be with us for at least 45 minutes and guiding us.
Well, thank you very much. It is my pleasure and privilege to be here. It's wonderful to hear about all the initiatives that you're driving. And I think to talk about spirituality in medicine itself is a very, very powerful concept, because we know,
Yes.
especially in our culture and in all cultures, actually, in a sense, faith and hope plays such a big part in healing.
Absolutely.
So to look at that now as something and drive it from a medicine, from a health point of view, is a wonderful thing. So I look forward to hearing more about that.
Absolutely. We believe, sir, medicine cures, but the spirituality heals. And we need a healing minds and healing bodies.
Beautiful.
So thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you, ma'am. So as you rightly said about the leadership. So 3 decades back, like doctors never need, today we'll be talking about leadership and communication. So I think 3 decades back, doctors never thought about leadership or why there should be a coaching on communication. But now, right from like small nursing home, doctor is a leader of that nursing home, or when you see a surgeon in the OT, he has to be like a leader.
Absolutely.
And when you go to a corporate hospital also, then he has to be a leader and he has to take care of all that, everything. And like ma'am, we are seeing Fogsi and other organization, leadership plays a very, very important role. In smaller societies also, leadership is plays a very important role. And we as a doctor, communication also plays a very important role. So we should know how to communicate with our colleagues, with our patient. So today it's a great honor and privilege for me to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Rajesh Gangwani, who has done BTech in electrical engineering and is also MBA. He is executive and leadership communication coach. Rajesh has a stint of close to 3 decades in advertising and brand building. His last position held was managing partner at Gunderson Thompson India, now known as BML India. He brings a deep understanding of managing people, having led a large multidisciplinary team, mentoring and supporting team members to grow into leadership roles. He has various certifications and qualifications. Rajesh holds an ICF ACC credentials from ICF Global and has finished his level 2 coach training course towards a PCC credential from ICF Global. He is a certified holding space practitioner, Center for Transformational Coaching. He also has a practitioner certificate in NLP and extended DISC assessment. Rajesh has done his master's in management science marketing. Rajesh has now transitioned to a profession coaching as an executive and leadership communication coach and facilitator. And Rajesh enables seniors and emerging leaders to build and leverage the power of the executive presence to create influence and impact. Rajesh has coached seniors and emerging leaders across diverse sectors like textile, banking, consultancy, automotive, technology, etc. in areas of transition management, personal development, communication effectiveness, and executive presence, among others. Rajesh has 28 years of rich experience in brand communication during his stint at Wunderson Thompson. He has been a trusted partner to some of the leading Indian and multinational companies in country, including Hindustan, Unilever, Godrej Group, ITC, Tata, among others. So I invite Mr. Rajesh Tungani to give us, to enrich us and coach us and tell us how we as a doctors can be good leaders and good communicators.
Thank you so much for that very detailed introduction. And I'm very happy to be here and look forward to a very meaningful discussion. I hope I can add value to this forum.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being on a Fogsi platform. It's always honor and pleasure, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Rajesh, before we move forward, I mean, when I went through your CV, so I was surprised that you were a chemical engineer, then you did MBA, and you really worked for 30 years in the industry. Then what came into your mind? Suddenly you were at the peak of your career, and then you suddenly changed to the coaching. So what prompted to choose this field?
Yeah. So the first part about being a chemical engineer, I think in those days, I'm talking for long, that phase in the 80s, when if you were reasonably good in your studies, you either became a doctor or you became an engineer. So you became a doctor, I became an engineer. And I realized very quickly, 1.5 years into my first job, that I wanted to go on a different path. And I was very interested in brands. I was very interested in marketing. And then I realized that I need to do my post-graduation in management. And MBA, of course, that those days was not as common as it is today. But yeah, I realized that I need to get through that and then get into the space that I was looking for. And then after doing my MBA from Mumbai, I got into my campus job was advertising. It was something that I was always fascinated by, the whole power of a creative idea and how you could reach out to so many people and change their behavior and attitude through the power of communication. So, and then I realized it became my second home for almost 28 years. I was in the same industry, though I worked across many companies and many brands. There's some of you which you shared. Around 2019, I was sort of getting a feeling that it was time for me to do something different. Sometimes people call it the second innings of your life. And I was feeling that, yeah, my first innings was coming to an end and I had to do something different, which would satisfy my soul a little more. And I was on this journey of self-awareness, wanting to know a little bit more about myself. And as it is, as a leader, I was very people-oriented in my style of leadership. So I felt, can I get into get into something that would allow me to get more closer to issues that concern people, and how people can reach their full potential, including myself. And how could I drive myself and encourage and support others to reach their full potential? And that's how I got into coaching, and that sort of became my transition from a person who was into branding and marketing to getting into executive and leadership coaching.
Great. That's really a wonderful journey and very challenging. And you've taken a lot of risk in your this thing, and really you are doing wonderful in this part of your life too. So I would like to know, like, what is leadership and what are the leaders and what trait a person should have as a leader?
My God, this itself, Dr. Manoj, can take us one full day or maybe one full month to discuss about leadership. But yeah, let's try and see at a very simple level. John Maxwell is one of the persons who's a foremost name in leadership, and he says leadership is simply influence. And in a very, very simple way, if you say what is leadership, leadership is really about building influence or creating influence, where more and more people want to look up to you, are inspired by you, and want to follow you, right? And at a very, very fundamental level. And I find that leadership today, there are so many different ways to look at leadership today. From the time I was, if I were to say, when I started my career, in the 90s to now, I find leadership has changed completely. In those days, it was still that very top-down command and control kind of leadership, where you had your position, your title, your designation, whichever industry you went to. And I'm coming from more of a corporate lens because I have dealt with that. But generally, you saw that if you had certain authority and you were at the top, and then you became a leader. And then you had people who looked up to you and followers. Whereas today, things have changed quite dramatically, where from positional authority, you're moving to more like a moral authority, or authority which is not dependent on your title, your designation. I'm not saying there's no hierarchies. Yeah, every organization, every industry has hierarchies. But today you can be a leader and an influencer. Now, even if you take it the social media way, there are so many influencers today, and they are also leaders in their own right, and they are influencing public opinion, right? So you can have leadership even at a very early age in your life. Remember, we used to say, even with our own children, we said, build leadership abilities. You want them to become leaders. So in a sense, leadership quality is different from being a leader. Or for instance, even if you take the example of cricket today, Virat Kohli may not be the captain of the team, and he may not be the leader of the Indian team, but he's still a leader in the car. So are other people. In the Indian team, you have so many other leaders, because without having a authority of a captain or a coach, they're still exhibiting leadership potential or leadership attitude and mindset. So I think that is important. Today, I also feel what's changed a lot is the world has got disrupted. Thanks to all the things that we have seen, technology being the biggest disruption happening. And today there's AI. And through the years, there have been many through digital disruption happening. We are living in what is called as the VUCA world, right? Volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous. So all that means today's leaders have to be very different from the leaders of earlier. Number one, today's leaders have to be far more flexible and adaptable, because you have to say, expect the unexpected today. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. What tomorrow, the world may be completely different in many ways. And now if you have powerful heads of countries who have come in and joined, every day there's some news coming through, from the top, the biggest leaders in the world. So flexibility, adaptability, resilience, these are qualities that have become very important today in leadership. So also I would say empathy. And COVID, for instance, was a big disruption that happened in our lives. And I think somewhere the importance of empathy in a leader really came to the front, right? And today, one of the key requirements for any person looking for a job today is that, am I going to be in a culture which promotes a lot of empathy? There is inclusivity in the organization. So leaders cannot just say that I'm the boss and I'm going to tell people what to do. Today, they have to create a culture which is very supportive, which is very enabling. And the idea is that people have potential, how as a leader can remove the obstacles from people's way and allow them to flourish, allow them to blossom, allow them to thrive in this culture. So that again is a very important part of leadership. In fact, I came across Dr. Manoj this word in a speech delivered by one industry leader. He said the quality that is required today is called humbition, which is humility and ambition. So if you put humility and ambition put together, it does not mean that you don't have to be ambitious. In fact, if at all, today's leaders have to be very courageous, very bold, take big risks, because the world offers many opportunities. Along with that, there's also a bit about humility. So that's the other part today, that along with empathy, you also need to have that humility to say, I still have to learn. I am today, when I'm not here to give any Gyan here to any session. This is called Gyan Pravah, but I am also part of this learning from this river of knowledge. Every day I learn new things. So this whole bit of having a learning mindset today is critical for any leader, however senior you are. you have to literally have this beginner's mindset to say, even today, I have so many new things to learn, right? So some of these qualities I think are important. These are some of the qualities that I think are important for leadership. And of course, one thing that is very close to my heart is about communication. If there's one thing that has not gone out of a leader's arsenal, is not communication. There's a quotation that I often quote in my sessions is, the art of communication is the language of leadership. Meaning, if you are a leader, if you're a good leader and a great leader, you're bound to be a great communicator. Or communication, not necessarily that I would say all leaders are great communicators, but being a good communicator is an important enabler to become a good leader. I mean, if you can through the power of your words, rally people around you and influence people to follow you, right? That makes a very big difference to wherever you are, in whichever industry you are.
Right. So what I feel is let's start from the basic and smart. A doctor in a nursing home who is the owner and he has to manage very staff and all. So what he feels that he should the staff should be fearful of him so that they will be more disciplined. But I think things have changed now. His personality should be such that they get influenced or motivated by seeing their boss, the kind of life he's leading or the kind of work he's doing. So I think that part is also important because things, as you rightly said, things have changed a lot over the decades. Previously, as you said, the leaders, they become leaders or head of the organization because of their age or because of their experience and all, only, hierarchy point of view. But now even the young generation can lead someone who is elder to him or her. So how to develop that kind of quality?
Absolutely. And you are absolutely right, because today it's got nothing to do with age or the fact that, you have to be a certain age, you have to have gray hair, and to become a leader. You have got entrepreneurs who are starting companies and building billion-dollar companies, at very, very early age in their stage in their career. So, but I think you raised a very important point about hospitals, and whether they are private hospitals or big hospitals. I can share with you a very personal experience from my own side. My mother was very serious and was admitted to a hospital very recently to a big setup in Nagpur, which is where I come from. And by God's grace, she came out of the challenge that she went through. One thing that struck me as amazing in that hospital, the doctor who was in charge, the doctor of internal medicine, was responsible for her, would every day, Dr. Manoj, call us for a briefing, it was called a counseling session, but in many ways it was like a debrief session, or he would give us feedback. Every single day on his rounds, he would call and say, this is how the patient is, this is exactly what we are doing, this is what she's responding, this is what we anticipate could happen. Now, it was very comforting for me as a caregiver, as a patient, as a son, to know what was happening. Now, if you go back to the earlier conversation we had about the earlier set of leadership, it was about, you have no right to ask any questions. You don't know about our field. We do what we have to do as doctors, and no questions to be asked and no answers to be given. From that to say today, it is more like a collaborative process. And I know in some of the other parts of the world, in UK, for instance, they make it like a protocol where the caregiver or the patient's relative has to work along with the doctor, because they have the knowledge about the patient, much richer and deeper knowledge about the patient than even the doctor. But the doctors just come in at that, and the caregiver knows the patient for a very long time. So for me, that was such an important part of her recovery, that every day I would make my notes and go to the doctor saying, this is what I think, what is going to happen, should we do this, should we do that, or what are you planning to do? He would openly and transparently share. And against that, we had another alternative experience in a different hospital, much bigger hospital, where it was just a black hole. There was absolutely no communication. You were just sitting outside, you sent some short messages about it, but nowhere were you told what was really being done. And I realized the value of what I gained in this case in Nagpur when I was looking back at that experience. So I think it's extremely important today, whichever industry, especially in the healthcare field, it's so important that communication should be free flowing, should be transparent. I think there's a concern that we were chatting about was about in India, doctors are very busy because there's so many patients to look after, and that is the reality, right? And doctors do not have time to attend to every single question. And sometimes we are, as Indians, we have too many questions, right? But there can be boundaries drawn. In the case, for instance, in the one that I was telling you about in Nagpur, where the doctor would say, I would only talk to one or two people and nobody else. Because if it's a big family and everybody's coming and talking to me, just tell me who the right person to that I need to talk and share the feedback. So boundaries can be drawn. And or sometimes there are counseling centers where the main big doctor, the person who's a busy person, may not be available, he or she. And then there are junior counselors who would then come and tell the patients that this is what is happening. But it's important today that transparency is there, right? The world has moved to transparency. The other key word that I want to just highlight here is authenticity. And I'm talking about leadership now, going back to the first question. What has changed today? One of the biggest requirements today is for leaders to be authentic, to be who they are. You know, there's so much of fake things happening around in media, everywhere. You don't know whom to trust. And this is one business, this is one profession that you blindly trust, right? You believe that doctors are like God, you know, for they save lives. They're doing a noble profession. So how authentic is the person that you're dealing with? How authentic is the hospital? How authentic is the culture in the hospital? How authentic are the medical staff? So I think it's very important for leadership and for communication concepts to be adopted in hospitals as well.
So what you feel, a person when he becomes a leader, there's a lot of things which he has to unlearn as a leader.
I can tell you from coaching, just to give it a slightly different flavor from coaching. I remember as a leader, I was heading, had profit and loss responsibilities. I was heading a very big team. And then I had to become a coach. I had to learn. I had to unlearn a lot. Unlearn because there was no room for giving advice. And if you know that the more senior you get, it's very easy for you to dole out advice to everybody. So trusting that person to know what the answers are. And that takes a lot of doing to build that kind of trust, to say that, look, I am no one to come and change you. You know exactly what the issue is. You know what the answers are within us. Very often, as a coach, I realize, and as a leader also, I think this applies to leaders everywhere, that they need to trust people, to say that the people I have know what needs to be done. Now, they may not be doing that for whatever reasons, because change is difficult, right? They may not be doing it. And that's where the job of a leader or a coach comes into. How can I support this person in front of me to stay true to their potential, to find, and I can help them find their own solutions. Because if you find your own solutions, you are likely to do something about it. If somebody tells you, you do this and you do that, we know even parents struggle with children today, with their own teenagers. You tell them what to do, they'll do exactly the opposite, right? Because they're not owning that decision. But the moment you say, what do you want to do? How will this help you? You talk a language which is relevant to their needs. So you are saying, you figure out what you think works best for you, and I am there to support you fully. And that was the big unlearning for me to your question, to really hold back, not to do what I was doing as a leader in the corporate side, to jump into giving advice, jump into giving solutions to everything, trying to fix problems. Here, I would say, let us discuss and let's figure out what is bothering you and what do you want to go? Where do you want to go? And I can help you go there. Sometimes as a mentor, sometimes as a coach. So I don't know whether I've been able to answer your question fully.
No, perfect. So today we are talking about leadership and communication. So suddenly I remember I recollected that you were into advertisement and branding. So I thought, why not to take advantage of that? So how you see that, like in past doctors or hospital didn't need this thing. So now sometimes they feel there's a need of branding, there is a need of advertisement for. So how you as a non-medico how you feel should the hospitals or how they should place themselves in society. So a little bit on that, if you can throw a light.
Yeah, I think we are in a scenario where corporatization of healthcare is happening. Lots of hospitals are building brands. So I think finally, what are we really talking about? We're talking about trust, right? We're talking about care. Those basic offerings that you expect from the medical field. You expect a certain level of care. You trust that things will be done as per what are the guidelines, SOPs. What else? Trust, care, technology. Right? Today, I remember again back to that hospital that I was going in Nagpur, there was lots of hoardings put up, robotic surgeries. Today, advanced level of surgeries are being done here. You have got the best of doctors available doing the kind of things that we would not imagine would happen in our country. So today, hospitals also, branding is all about differentiation, right? So how do you brand yourself? How do you differentiate yourself? So today, all hospitals want to say that this is what I stand for, and this is how I will deliver and live. And back to the authenticity part, I will deliver to that promise of what I'm claiming to, and the promises that I make, because brands make promises and they have to live up to those promises. So I think today we are living in the world of branding and personal branding. If you've noticed, I find a lot of interesting thing on LinkedIn. I find some doctors also. And there's one young doctor who has got a huge following on LinkedIn, and he's building a personal brand because he talks a lot about valuable tips about how to take care of this, how to take care of your health, fitness, and people are now saying that they are becoming influencers, right? So even typically earlier, doctors would shy away from coming in front of media. They would do what they were doing. But today I find they're using the social media platform to also create their own brands. So there's personal branding, there's organizational branding also in terms of dispensaries, clinics, hospitals, just so that people feel a certain sense of trust. Brands build trust. So when I have this name, I feel, this is the place that I can safely go to because I've heard their name. It has got a reputation. It's people. There's a lot of strong word of mouth about it. So I don't even need to sometimes advertise because there are enough and more people saying good things about it. So that's where the principles of branding come into play in your field.
So as we said, that technology has improved a lot. There are good facilities. Quality of healthcare is improved, but human touch is also very, very important. Human care, this humility, as you said previously. So I think that is the core value of the healthcare. Should be the core value of the healthcare system.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. In fact, if at all you can say in a world which is getting disrupted by technology, humanity is going to become more and more critical. It is literally, as humankind, this is our biggest strength, right? Tomorrow, we don't know what's going to happen with all the challenges that we are facing from AI, right?
Right.
What we can hold on to dearly is what makes us human and what qualities of that humanity can we bring to the fore in whatever field where we are. And especially when it comes to the healthcare field, when it comes to the medical field, that can be a huge differentiator. Because eventually, I was hearing Madam talking about spirituality in medicine. Now think about that. That's where that whole thing, it's the head and the heart. You can talk about technology, you can talk about advanced care, you can talk about many other things. But eventually there's also about the heart, right? Where you make a choice because finally it's your life of a loved one there. And there is a certain emotional strength that this brand has to have, and the people there. And this example to me, with my mother's hospital, I feel very strongly about the hospital today because I realize that even today I can pick up the phone and there are doctors available. There's a certain sense of beyond the transaction of money, beyond the transaction of bills getting settled, there's a certain relationship that is built. And that cannot go anywhere. In fact, if at all, that is going to become even more critical as we go forward.
It's not just about treating a disease or concentrating on an organ, you have to take a person as a whole, and there's a family involved attached to it. So you have to see in that perspective, not just you are focused on a disease perspective.
Absolutely. And this thing about, I think we were also talking somewhere about what kind of what kind of organizational structures people should be looking at. And I was for me, the best example is from this field of medical care. When they look at you, they're looking at your body, and the body it's like a complex system, starting with the brain, which is really the heart of everything, right? Um, so there's the brain, there's the heart, there's so many other body parts, and it's all working in tandem, like a system. So when you go to a doctor, when you go to a hospital, they are not treating you for only that particular, they're treating in this entire system, right? And similarly, when you look at now, step outside that to look at corporate entities, you look at hospitals, you look at, these are intricately connected network of a big mega system, and under that there are so many other things that are going on. So to organize that is literally like parallel to say आप body को कैसे handle कर रहे हो, उसी तरीके से this entire structure, this hospital को भी with this all intricate connections and various stakeholders, you have to run a system, and therefore the leadership quality is required even here, because you're not just saying that it's a very, very small 30 years, 40 years back, it was just like एक दवा खाने में जाना, एक छोटा हॉस्पिटल है, डॉक्टर से मिल लिए, you know. But today we are talking about complex systems. We are talking about lots of interplay happening between various specialists and super specialists coming in. Plus you have global influences. There's so much going on. And how does this organization hospital work? So no wonder a lot of people are moving from regular corporate jobs to come into hospitals. I know that many people from consumer products are also now getting into pharma companies, are getting into hospitals, because they also realize healthcare itself is now become like a fairly robust and a complex entity, which needs all kinds of management principles.
So, I mean, are there different kind of leaderships, like how you divide it? Leading a corporate hospital or then organization, like we have organization of 46,000 gynecologists. So do you define, I mean, there's a demarcation or different types of leadership, or how it is?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at one sort of definition of that would be to say, earlier it was more tactical kind of leadership, which you do at a junior level as you go up. Then you graduate to strategic leadership, then visionary leadership, right? And then you're talking about transformational leadership. So one of the things also is to look at now, a lot of things that are being talked about are this whole systemic thinking, right? Not just look at things at a individual entity level, but to look at things as complex systems. And the point that we were just talking about, and therefore have a systemic leadership lens to managing organizations. Also, I think we're talking about strategic leadership. And in this whole volatile world, you have to do a lot of scenario planning. What if this happens? What if that happens? And we all went through COVID. Now, people were thinking of so many possibilities because we didn't know what would come out of it, right? So now with uncertainty becoming the only certainty in a manner of way, change is the only constant here, like they say. How do you actually manage this? And therefore, what you have to be a strong strategic leader, right? You of course have to start with a purpose. So in few years back, there was a lot of thought about purposeful leadership. Define what your purpose is, what your vision is, mission is, right? And let the purpose drive it, right? Or like a Narayana Rudayala would have their own purpose, right? So it's important that you have a lighthouse. This is the reason why I'm here. So define your why, define your purpose. But having said that, with your purpose in mind, we also need to know, what if this happens? What if that happens? So purpose is there to anchor me. But at the same time, I need to have a very, very clear strategic view to what could the future bring forward, and how then do I adapt to that uncertain future? So I think that's something that needs to be kept in mind.
Yeah. So coming back to communication, nowadays we find that doctor-patient relationship has eroded a lot. Something negative happens, so the mob they gets violent. They start hitting the doctor, or they vandalize the property. So I think there's some lack of communication, lack of this thing is there between a doctor and patient. So right from the beginning, I think good communication should be established and good rapport should be established between a doctor and the patient. So
Yeah, that's very sad what you are just sharing, and we know that this has happened. There were many cases, especially during, I think, even COVID time. There were many cases like this where people were, and yes, when things anxiety, when does anxiety happen? Anxiety happens first of all when you know that you don't have control, right? We would like to have control over many things in our life, and that gives us some amount of confidence and reassurance. Right? When you start feeling that you don't have control, and yes, in the case of somebody being ill or having a serious illness, you do not have control. You're relying on somebody else, big time to deliver that kind of care. But equally, I think there has to be communication to tell you what is going on, right? To reassure you that the best is being done. Sometimes what happens that people become more anxious when they don't know. As it is, they feel out of control, right? Especially in where there's literacy levels are not high. Where literacy levels are not high, and you're feeling that whether the doctor's doing the right thing, they are overcharging you, or they are doing things that are not required to be done. Especially when something is not required, a surgery is not required, but then somebody is forcing you to do it. Whatever. But I'm saying, if people are more genuine, there's integrity. I think that's again a very key part of leadership. There's integrity in what is being given to you as a solution. Then people are far more comfortable, right? I also feel sometimes there is this whole thing of why does this happen very often? Why do people not share? I think people feel that आजकल जैसे मैंने भी सुना है बहुत बार डॉक्टर गूगल से पढ़ के आ जाते हैं and they are challenging us. Now you can, if you see from the doctor's lens, I think they are right to the extent that people sometimes, there is WhatsApp university, as we say. People half-baked knowledge leke aa jate hain, and then they start saying, why have you not done this? Why have you not done that? And that can also come in the way of sometimes doctors feeling that, people are encroaching into an area where they don't have enough knowledge. Right? Even me, anything that you read in Google and you feel that all symptoms that you can think of, the worst symptoms are all there for everything that you do. So you can go crazy thinking, ye liya to finally ye ho jayega. So the acceptance that we don't understand it, but doctors also need to understand there's some amount of worry, concern, and people have today access to a lot of information. Whether that information is correct or not is a different issue, but they have access. So they also have a right to know. Now, this therefore needs the sensitivity on the part of healthcare professionals to strike a balance between how much can I want to tell them without really giving them too much details, because sometimes you get details, it scares people also, right? And that is where a maturity level comes in to say, okay, there's some amount that I need to be reassured. And sometimes I just need to tell people to keep their boundaries. I am not answerable to every single thing, because people come up with weird things that they read anywhere and they come up. So difficult. It's a tightrope walk, Dr. Manoj, that it's no easy answers here. But I would say the more people are open, transparent, to the extent with boundaries defined, it's better for everybody. And even if I draw the parallel in from corporate side, when there's a crisis, if a leader does not speak up in a crisis, then you know that there's going to be trouble. The real value of a leader is when there's a crisis hitting. They need to stand up and say, okay, guys, this is what is happening. I remember many, many years back when I came back to Mumbai from the south. I was coming back to the office, and I came into a very difficult situation where my organization was not doing too well. Things were very bad. The morale was at an all-time low. We were without a leader before I came in, without a leader of the office for a long time. So you could imagine that things were just not fine. And people outside the organization was actually saying, "Oh, ये तो बंद होने वाली है office. यहाँ तो कुछ नहीं हो रहा है. We are losing business." And a lot of rumors start circulating. Things may not be right. And I still remember that the first thing that I did was I called all my senior leadership into a room, conference room, and I had a very, very open chat. I just told them, now these are senior people. I'm not talking to middle and junior, because there you have to calibrate how much you want to share, because they might get panicky. But with seniors, it's like with your wife, with your spouse, or with you tell them what is right, what is happening, right? Here I called all the seniors in the room and said, we are in deep trouble. And this is what it is. And we have to put our heads together. I'm new to this office. I'm going to rely on a lot of you because you have been working in this office. But let us put our heads together and really pull this office out, because we have to salvage the reputation. So it builds that sense of ownership. आप अगर वो नहीं करोगे तो first of all, people don't know. They think the worst is going to happen, right? We have a negativity bias. We think when we don't know, we think the worst is going to happen. And then when there's no communication, then people start looking at rumors. अच्छा ये होने वाला है, वो होने वाला है. So once putting everybody together, telling openly this is the thing, and then you start working together, saying let's now put together a strategy to put things back on track. So then you are getting everybody to partner you, collaborate, co-create, rather than, and then of course there are egos also, right? So then you have to start working through egos also. That fine, it's not that one person can do it, but we all have to do it together. So this is where I feel that what applies in corporate side also applies in places like here, where the value of communication, and I would say that is important for every sector. You cannot hold back. Why do leaders sometimes not communicate? Power comes from holding back. आजकल के ज़माने में, I don't want to share this, I want to share this. Now, this whole thing of give as much as possible, because you cannot protect anything. Everything is available in the universe. What are we holding on to? As much as you share, today you have a lot of people in social media sharing a lot of their work, open source, because finally, as leaders, you want to create more leaders. As leaders, you want to make sure that it's not it's resting with me. I'm passing it on so that it can benefit more and more people. So this whole aspect of givers and takers there's a very famous book also by a gentleman called Adam Grant. But you need more givers and takers. We were earlier about take from everything and hold it, right? Now is the time to actually let go and give freely to people so that it can benefit more people.
So before we end, I would like to know which global leaders have influenced a lot, like which you look up to them and you have learned from them.
Oh, there are many. There are many leaders that you get inspired by, starting from our own country. You have a prime minister, right, who's a powerful leader. I realize with all those geopolitical tensions, you also want a strong leadership for your own country. And I think so that we are not dependent on one country, as we've seen in some cases recently. You are not really getting, you're holding your own in front of the world, right? So again, that stature of leadership is very important. I think from a industry side, you have Ratan Tata, proudly Indian, and built did so much humanitarian work. And back to empathy, the point that we said, he was a leader who believed in empathy, right? So again, very, very strong role model to a lot of people on how you could do ethical leadership. You don't have to become a cutthroat person. You can still retain the human qualities of leadership. So I think that he's another person that I would say is a very strong leader. I find a lot of our leaders today are creating now powerful people in the world. So Satya Nadella, or the Google head Sundar Pichai, or Indira Nooyi earlier, from PepsiCo. So we have a lot of Indian leaders who are creating global impact. So again, I think we should see them as well. And of course, we have a strong spiritual leader. So I don't want to restrict it to even only business and, even under Nilekani, for instance. And there's so many people who are doing great work here, foundational work, so lots to learn, and and you pick up people at different stages of your life. You have different role models. and you learn from various people, and they influence the way you think. So Steve Jobs, of course, from a marketing branding point of view, you always think of Steve Jobs, of what he did and the kind of bold, courageous vision he had, right? So yeah, these are some of the names that come to mind.
So today we had a wonderful talk. We talked about leadership, we talked about communication, even we talked about the branding and advertisement. So at the end, what will be your message? What else you would like to add on today's conversation?
I think thank you first of all for the kind of questions that you asked me. I think the questions were very sharp. Their questions were very wide as well. I'm surprised how much we covered in the last 35-40 minutes. I think we covered a wide canvas. My message is that if at all I had to leave this one, is that communication is very important. It's the heart of leadership, right? I do a lot of work in the area of communication with people. And one thing that I always talk about when I talk about communication is, everybody thinks communication is gift of the gab, talking, oratory, standing up on speech and giving thundering speeches, creating impact and wow, dhamaka. I think to me, one of the most important part of it is being a good listener. And I always, when I'm talking to even the senior most people that I'm dealing with, my first, any discussion on communication starts with, how can we be a good listener? Because if you're a good listener, you're a good empathetic leader, because you're starting with understanding the other person first, rather than saying, I am God's gift to mankind. I've got so many things to say. We are so obsessed with our own story. We want to tell the world how powerful we are, how good we are, how intelligent we are, and this is how we can change the world. But the heart of communication is listening first, to say, what do people want from you? How can I serve people better? What value can I add to people's life? So to me, listening first and speaking later. And the world will be a much better place if everybody listened better. And especially if I say, the more senior we get, the more we need to learn the art of listening. So that would be my message.
So I also feel that a leader is like a jeweler. He should be able to pick the diamond and polish them. Find out. He should be able to pick a stone and make it into a diamond by after polishing it. And secondly, I feel a leader should have he should also be into spiritualism, and he should be able to create a positive vibes, and always the outlook should be always a positive. So that his aura, his positiveness attracts people towards him, and the atmosphere is very, positive.
That's a very beautiful thing that you said, and it brings me to the point about inside out leadership. That work on yourself first.
Right. Right.
How can we even call ourselves as change agents, or leaders are change agents, right? How can we impact when we have to do the inner work?
Right.
And we always, the old kahavat of practice before you preach,
Right.
What it actually means is that any change has to begin from inside. And that's very important. Even as a coach today, a lot of the work to become a good coach or a great coach is about working on your own self.
Yeah.
Working on your self-awareness. And today, why do you think people are turning to spirituality and a lot of other things, which has always been in a culture? Because people realize that in a world which is so turning upside down, you want to go back to your source, go back to the inside, right? And if you're steady inside, if you are happier inside, can you then create happiness outside? If you are peaceful inside, can you create peace outside? अब अंदर ही आपकी इतनी उथल पुथल मची होगी, so how can you handle the chaos outside?
Right.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about the communication with others, I mean, it's very important what you communicate with yourself.
Exactly.
Constant talk is going on. If it's very positive, then obviously the thoughts will come into action. You'll be more optimistic, more positive towards others. So that self-talk is also, I think, very, very important.
Completely. And spoken, very much part of all the coaching conversations we have. And it's almost like the thing about what is the story that you're telling yourself?
Right.
We are good storytellers. We create and craft stories in our mind, right? And very often we have some beliefs which are not positive, which are limiting beliefs, and we create a story for ourselves. And when we're talking of leadership, we're talking about confidence. And sometimes if you're creating a story within you that I'm not this and I'm not that and I have this issues and I'm that. So suddenly your narrative itself is self-defeating, and therefore you cannot expect to create positivity outside, because your own story has to be empowering for yourself. And there's a lot of conversation today about self-compassion. I'm sure you've heard in your own field is that even I would say doctors, I think today people work very hard. And I remember in my own family, there are many nieces I have who are doctors and very skilled, and they really work very hard in COVID, day and night, day and night. And somewhere you also tell them that you need to do self-care. And even as we give a lot of ourselves to others, we need to take care of ourselves. And therefore, that's also equally important. There's so much of mental well-being being discussed today. A lot of issues that we were not so familiar with earlier. Maybe life was a bit simpler. Today, life has become more challenging, stressful, complex, especially for younger people. And you're hearing a lot of mental wellness issues happening.
Right, right.
It's also because somewhere there's not enough self-care, not enough self-love and self-compassion that is happening. So that inside work where you feel that I am okay, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me. I think that kind of self-narrative or self-story that you need to tell yourself every day, that I'm really, truly, there's nothing wrong with me. And I need to hold on to my own self-belief before I can champion it outside.
Just give me 1 minute. I just. Yeah. So that was a wonderful this thing. And one thing also, I feel that one should learn self-validation. So if you are validating yourself, you don't need your leader or your boss if he is not validating, still your performance is very good. Same way a leader should feel that way. He should not depend upon the validation from his team. He should be confident enough. And that way, I think, what's your take on that?
Yeah, look, I think validation is important. Let's face it. I think we are human at the end of the day. We want to feel appreciated. We want to be complimented. So I wouldn't say that validation is not important. But I think what is critical here is that I do not want to be led by being validated to build my own self-worth and my self-esteem. कि अगर validation किसी ने नहीं किया तो मेरे में कुछ खामी है. I mean, that is critical, that I hold on to my self-worth, my self-esteem, and don't become a victim of the fact that I'm seeking validation so badly for me to justify my own self-worth. But yes, I seek validation as a human. If I do a good job, I want to be told. It's like we are at the end of the day, that never goes away, right? That human quality of feeling appreciated, that you did a great job. We all seek that as humans. But to be completely driven by that, or to become a slave to that, to justify my own self-worth, that is where it starts becoming defeating. So I would say both of them.
So you want to say that a leader should be able to validate his team member or whoever is doing a good job. So this is the one way of motivating his team.
Yes. So that whole bit of the confidence and self-belief is there. I honor my decisions. I respect myself. I care for myself. But yes, I also am human. I would like to be told that, that I've done a good job. It allows me to do even better. If someone tells me on the right path, which also means that if you don't validate it and people are being critical about you, you don't take it to heart. That's the other part. That sometimes there are people who do it, negative feedback is also given for vested interests. So if you hear something which is not good, which is not positive, it should not completely make you crumble down. So you are holding on to your self-worth strongly. So I think it's really balancing both.
So thanks a lot. We have discussed a lot today, covered many areas.
Right.
So hope to see you again on this platform with a different perspective. So thanks a lot, and we really enjoyed interacting with you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Manoj, for inviting me to this platform. It was a pleasure sharing my views Yeah, and I look forward to future interactions as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.